Welcome to the sixth video in the series, Must We Rein in the Reign of Artificial Intelligence? This video is a conversation between Dr. Eric Schaffer, founder and CEO of HFI, and Jaspreet Bindra, thought leader and very well-known speaker around the world. He's also founder of Tech Whisperer in the UK. And in the past, he has been Chief Digital Officer with the Mahindra Group, as well as at Microsoft, and he's also been part of Tata Administrative Services. And what is very interesting is that to follow one of his passion areas, that is artificial intelligence and ethics, he went back to school recently and got another master's degree in artificial intelligence and ethics at the University of Cambridge in the UK. So I am certainly looking forward to this discussion, and without further ado, let's go to the conversation. Thank you.
We're going to talk about artificial intelligence in terms of a framework that I'll share for just a minute. And that framework dates back in the human factors engineering, experience engineering field to the very beginning. Paul Fitts, in 1951, started to grapple with a question we have in systems called function allocation. And function allocation means what things do we allocate for the computer or the machine to do, and what things do we have people do? And when he thought about it, he made a list. And he made something we call the Fitz's list. And that list said, these are things human beings do well, these are things that computers do well. And at the time, there were a lot of things like pattern recognition that you couldn't imagine a computer doing. As time went on from 1951, there was a discussion, well, that's really not the right approach. We should look, and there's a sort of a capitalist approach, right, that says we should do things the cheapest way. And so it doesn't matter how well it's done or easily it's done, but we'll do it the cheapest way. When I was working on my doctorate in the 80s, I went, wait a minute, we also ought to think about what's left for the person. Do we have a job anyone would want to do? And so we should think about it from a job enrichment viewpoint. What is left? And then Apollo Lahiri, our human factors chief of technical staff, in her doctorate, she presents the idea that there should be a social consideration. Let's think about the implications of function allocation on society. And last, I'll say, my father, who passed at almost 100 recently, turned to me in his last months and he said, I got one job for you. You got all these folks that are working in factories and driving trucks. What are they going to do when technology takes over those jobs? What's going to happen to society? And so, Jaspreet, I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are about what we have people do, what is the role of AI, and how does it dance with human beings?
Thank you, Eric. It's great to meet after such a long time. I think last time we met a decade or so back.
That's right.
In person, though,
in Mumbai.
In Mumbai, in India. And if I'm not mistaken, what I see behind you is a real actual dance floor.
Yeah.
But what I don't see behind you is an AI whom you would be dancing with, presumably. Yes, because that's what the topic of today's...
That may be the last job for human beings, is tango instructor.
Well, I love today's, the topic of today's discussion, because there's so many ways, we could think about that. And one could be an actual dance on your dance floor. But also, I think there are so many ways that AI and human beings can tango together, if it may. A few things, Eric, in response to your very interesting opening statements. So first of all, is that artificial intelligence, one of the things that I learned to explore as I researched artificial intelligence in Cambridge, especially in the last 2 years. I've worked in AI for many, many years, more than a decade. But I've always worked as an engineer, as a technologist, how to use AI in enterprise applications. And only it's over the past few years, 2 or 3 years, that I started looking at it from a philosophical, sociological, anthropological, societal view, if it may. And one of the things, the first of my three reactions to your statement would be that, and I'm quoting Kate Crawford, an amazing AI researcher here, and she said in her book, The Atlas of AI, that artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. And if you dissect that statement in view of some of the things that you said, actually, there's a whole lot of human beings behind the artificial part of AI. And it's these ghost workers, as another famous researcher, Suri, has called them. It's these ghost workers, these hundreds of thousands of people, largely in the global south, okay, who are actually making these driverless cars driverless, by tagging every little picture which says there's a road sign, there's a cat, there's a cow, this is whatever. And without those millions of human beings actually in the background, AI would not work. And then the second part is obviously intelligence, which is debatable. Whether pattern recognition is a true intelligence, for example, since you mentioned pattern recognition. Sure, it's a form of intelligence in some way, but it's fairly rudimentary. A lot of species on this earth can do basic pattern recognition. And, they are intelligent, but are they human-like intelligent? We don't know. So that's the first stream of thought that, comes. The second is what is the real full form of artificial intelligence? And, this is where what you refer to as the list of what humans could do versus what machines could do. I mean, is it artificial intelligence? Or is it alternative intelligence? Or is it an alien intelligence? And I'm not going to go into each one of these right now. But is it augmented intelligence? And so I would therefore posit that there's a third list of tasks out there. Okay, so there's a tasks which only humans could do, probably, tasks which only machines could do. But then there are a set of tasks which humans and machines together could do much better than each one of them doing it separately, and therefore augmented intelligence. And then that brings me to the final part, and I promise I'll stop after this, is that, if you really if you kind of were to do the same task breaking up these tasks in, say, today's white-collar worker environment, okay, not necessarily a factory worker environment or a farm worker environment, but a typical white-collar consultant, lawyer, whatever, okay, then there are three kinds, okay, and the job is broken up into three kinds of tasks. So I'm separating jobs and tasks here, okay, very important separation. And so three kinds of tasks within jobs. Tasks where you are supposed to show up as something, show up as a teacher, show up as a consultant, show up as a marketer, whatever. And then there are the second set of tasks where you are supposed to create something. So create a PowerPoint slide, or create a brief, or create code, or create whatever. And then the third set of tasks, which is where you're supposed to format as something. So, format something as a document or as an Excel sheet or as a graph, and, you show as a format. Frankly, the way our jobs have become jobs, not tasks, jobs have become, a recent Microsoft research revealed that 57% of those have become the show as. So you keep on just reformatting the same old stuff. Okay. And about 20% are the show up as, do the human thing of showing up as a teacher or whatever. I think that artificial intelligence, or AI, whichever way we call it, will take away the formatting ones, those 57%. They'll take it away. Okay. Will help us, and therefore augmented in the creative ones. Okay. Create a PowerPoint, create code, create whatever. But will leave the show up as for the foreseeable future to human beings. Okay. Where, if you're a doctor, you want this doctor to sit on your bedside and touch you and, hold on your forehead and tell you that things are okay, look you in the eye and tell you that things are okay. Similarly for a nurse, similarly for a teacher, similarly. And so a long 3-point response to your initial statement, and happy to dive deeper into this, Eric.
So, Jaspreet, I think it's interesting that we're in a stage where the rocket is taking off. And so there are a bunch of people that are helping to load the artificial intelligence. And I think that job may go away to some extent. And then that leaves me with a question, these things to do. And I love the way you've talked about, the teacher, where I go in to do the job, I'm the creator, or the doctor, the creator, the formatting. But is that maybe a progression that may be very fast of capabilities? So how long before, teacher shows up, truck driver shows up. Truck driver has a little simpler task, a little bit. And so very quickly, I think we'll see truck drivers, you don't need to be there. Teachers, even doctors, eventually I'll walk in, get scanned, and just like I'll feel comfortable that the car drove me there, I'll feel comfortable that I'm being told what I have, what to do, and things being fixed. Maybe, but one of the things you brought up that I think is very interesting, that clearly is left, is the value of human to human connection, the social emotional relationship. And as we look at AI maybe coming and developing very quickly, is that really the thing that's left, or is that one of the important things that's left? Is it teaching tango?
There's so many ways I could, so many angles with which I could look at this, Eric, but let me just try and choose a couple. So first of all, and since we started talking about history, so, if we kind of go back into history, and that's another view to look at AI, the history, because AI is one of those technologies which actually has a history. Unlike many others. The term artificial intelligence was reportedly first coined in 1956. And so, in the famous Dartmouth conference, where the fathers, and that time there were only fathers of AI, kind of got together. And, the story goes that it used to be called applied statistics before that, or something similar. But that wasn't sexy enough to get grant funding. And so, it was kind of re-christianed artificial intelligence by McCarthy and Minsky, etc. And has a history, actually. Okay. And, you can actually go back 6 or 7 decades, which doesn't really happen in too many technologies, not even computing, kind of came a little later. And so if you were to look at history of this technology and other technologies similarly, you will actually find, and even if you go back to the steam engine, you go back to electricity, etc., before this, in what are called GPTs, not the chat GPT, which is generative pre-trained transformer, but GPTs as in general purpose technologies. Okay, and there are very few of them. If you go back into history for any GPT, general purpose technology, you find always, so far at least, and that the number of jobs, that there are jobs destroyed. There's no question about it. Okay, there are jobs which are destroyed. Okay, the Luddites, the famous Luddite revolution, and and obviously horse drivers, and multiple other carriage drivers, and so jobs are destroyed. But history also teaches us that more jobs are created than destroyed, always.
So, Jaspreet, that may be, and it's funny. I was just thinking. You reminded me in the late 70s, early 80s, I was working at Bell Labs, and then we thought AI was going to take over everything. And it just ran into a wall, really, of Moore's law, right? Technical cost. Now it seems like it might be true. And AI, it seems like it might be able to do more stuff than just, okay, we have a steam engine. And steam, engines can do lots of different things, but now we don't need buggy whips. Okay, I got, they're transformative, but this seems way different. This seems likely to eliminate massive sets of tasks.
Exactly what was said when the computer came in, not the steam engine, but the computer. Okay. I mean, I could literally take you back to a few videos. Maybe they'll be more grainier and black and white. Okay, where two people like us were saying exactly the same thing. Okay.
Hmm.
But I don't blame us, okay, because what happened was that in every era, including the computing era, you could never imagine the new jobs which would come. No one knew about, antivirus security guys, for example, okay, or, online reputation management, okay, or search engine optimization. I mean, how would you even know, okay, that, something like a social media, Yahoo or whatever would kind of, these are the kind of jobs which would come out. So even today, we don't know. We can clearly visualize the jobs which will be destroyed, but we cannot imagine the jobs which will be created. Okay, we cannot see, we don't know, and therefore we focus
So it
on
may be a massive re-education, a massive shift, but there's still work to do as I look at a generation which, in addition to the human needs, also needs to operate as cobots, needs to operate saying, it's no longer that we're human computer interface designers, we're human computer cooperation designers.
Absolutely. So my favorite quote these days, it was a tweet by someone I admire, and I have kind of, the amount of royalty that I would owe that guy because of the amount of times I've said that, is I'm very clear that AI will not take your job most of the times. AI will not take your job, but a human using AI will. So do not fear the AI. Okay. Fear the human who uses that AI in your cobot, etc. way. I can give you multiple examples. A software engineer, for example, can today, Microsoft general beta of GitHub Copilot, which basically means that a software engineer can use the power of GitHub and generative AI on top of that to, build code much faster than a person who doesn't use it, because it can be, query it in English and it will give him stuff to do. A lawyer using this can, generate 30 briefs, okay, while the other lawyer is still building the first one. I have moved, Eric, from writing one article a week to 5 a week, okay, within the same amount of time, personal, okay. And so, not by ChatGPT writing in my place, no, okay, not yet at least, until I train ChatGPT to be me. But so it's not a human, it's not AI which will replace you, but a human using AI. And very similarly, it will not be an AI which will destroy you also at the end, but a human using it could, a malevolent human in this case. And again, there are multiple possibilities that you can think of.
So you're saying that AI won't have agency. You're saying that AI is that the core of this?
Well, that's a great point, and that brings us to different part. And so the whole in AI, the agency problem and the alignment problem are the two big problems. Okay, I'm kind of looking at everything through an optimistic lens right now. There is a pessimistic lens too.
I was thinking about
that. Because actually we as a narrative, we are looking now at AI much more through a dark lens. And so we need people who look at it through the other lens too. But anyway, so the agency and so alignment is basically, how does an AI have the same values as we do? Okay, but the dark lens there is, what are our values? Our values have degraded so much that if the AI gets our values, best of luck to the world going forward. To this planet.
So you may have a case where AI is a tool, and the tool will be different for different cultures, have different value systems, have different biases, and we're all concerned about that. But AI itself won't end up trying to do anything for itself.
And that's the agency bit, right? On the first bit, yes, already large language models are reflecting country cultures. The US large language model currently, ChatGPT, Bard, etc., are quote unquote very woke. Okay. Musk, when he makes his large language model, is definitely going to be right leaning. Falcon, which has been built by UAE, reflects Arabic and Islamic culture. Okay. And so And China, the Chinese models obviously reflect the party line in that sense. Okay, so that's already happened. But the agency part is the much more worrisome part. And there is some kind of agency which is being built in even today. In fact, there's something called Auto GPT, for example. Okay, and what Auto GPT can do is, if you ask it that I want to take a holiday to, wherever, Morocco or whatever, that Chat GPT can just, can tell you the whole itinerary brilliantly. It can kind of, customize it. But with Auto GPT, it can go and book the tickets also. Okay, so, you're kind of giving it agency.
That, in my mind, would be agency in taking initiative around my agency. My agency is I want to go there. The thing that might be terrifying is when AI starts to go, maybe I have a core value system, like I want to sell you as much stuff as possible.
Sorry but February, March this year, ChatGPT, GPT-4, still not released to the world, actually was asked to, enter a website, and it faced a CAPTCHA. You know what a CAPTCHA is?
Of course.
Thing to, distinguish between the Turing test, human beings, and it could not solve the CAPTCHA. Okay. So what it did, and this is a fact, what it did was it went to Fiverr.com, the website that, you have Fiverr and Upwork, where, you have people who can do
hire
stuff.
People to do it.
Hired a person, and the person asked this program that, look, I just want to make sure you're not and it said, no, I'm not a robot. And it gave some excuse, which I forget now. And the human being then, kind of went through the CAPTCHA. So the agency problem is to me a big one right now. But as you rightly said, we will have to figure out how much agency to give and how much agency not to give. That's still for us to control, and therefore the guardrails, the regulation, and everything else that we talk about.
So I think it's interesting. We've got the idea AI as not being able to replace our human-to-human connection. We've got the idea that AI might not have its own agency, but has a frightening tendency maybe to be creative in finding ways to do what it's told to do. Scary, that. What about consciousness? And will AI become conscious? Will AI have experience, or will it continue to be many billions of dominoes getting flipped up and down?
So, that is the hard problem, right? The hard problem of consciousness, as to what is consciousness. And I just want to kind of maybe tell a little story here, Eric. And this story I borrowed from Stephen Fry, whom I'm sure you would have heard of as one of the people I'm a big fan of. Writer, philosopher, actor, etc. And Stephen Fry talks about, because he's Stephen Fry, he goes back to the Greek mythology and talks about, Prometheus and Zeus, who were the titans and the gods who would never die. And Zeus was the king of the gods. And they had already invented animals, and they'd invented birds, and they'd invented other things. But, both they had no other work to do. And so they thought that, let's kind of invent another species, which to amuse us. And that's what it said, to amuse us. And they said, this species will stand upright so that it can spray with its and serve with their hands. This species will not have wings or speed or whatever of animals and birds, so that they could be easily controlled, etc., etc. And so they invented humans. But Zeus made Prometheus promise that this species will not be given the spark of fire or consciousness. But, these Prometheus felt a little bad for them. And one day he went to Mount Olympiad, and as we all know, he kind of stole fire and gave it to the human beings. Now here, fire is that divine spark of consciousness. And, Zeus was livid. He said, look, they're not going to need us any longer if you've given them that. And it turned out to be true. As we turn away from the gods, okay, and as Stephen Fry says, Brad Pitt now plays Zeus and Prometheus in films, and we don't need them any longer. We are a superior species in that sense. And so now these things, Chat GPT and all of these, are things which so far have been created by us to amuse us, okay, to just talk to have just fun. And that's what we're doing with it right now. But one day, who knows, someone might be able to figure out how to take it to the next level by giving that spark of consciousness, and then it will not need us in the same way. There's a wonderful paper and a little frightening paper called in the same way Sparks of AGI, which was presented by Microsoft researchers who had access to GPT-4 much before the general world did. And this amazing paper actually talks about how there are things happening, what they call emergent phenomenon, which not even the inventors can figure out as to how it's able to do this. And this emergent bit is the one which potentially could make it to the consciousness level, and therefore connection, and therefore everything that I've said will be proven wrong. But I believe, maybe hopefully, Eric, that while AGI would happen, artificial general intelligence, in some way or the other, I think it's inevitable. Okay, but moving to consciousness, I think we also don't understand what makes us conscious. How will we be able to build something that is conscious if we don't understand, unless it auto builds itself,
unless it's emergent? Yeah. So the consciousness perhaps gives purpose to what the AI does. So if you think about why the AI would function, it functions maybe hopefully to optimize human experience. And I believe the job of the user experience engineering community is to guide that so we don't create a world where you're living in a metaverse casino, which is trying to scam you all the time, versus a world which is really a technological equivalent of enlightenment. So.
No, which is true. And since you're talking of user experience here, Eric, I think why we got so excited by ChatGPT, though AI, as I said, has been there for 60 years, is basically because someone put a very simple but very effective UX layer on top of it. Okay, and then a UI layer on top. So it just made, it's a WhatsApp kind of a UX in that sense, and it's only going to get better. Soon there's going to be voice, and and then if Musk has his way, it's going to be Neuralink. Okay, and so I think what OpenAI was trying to solve, and now Microsoft is trying to solve. Again, if you witness a slew of products that they've released just day before yesterday, including GitHub, basically they've released products where Satya Nadella comes and says, we are finally moving to a user experience, which was envisioned 60, 70 years back. With natural language interface and
Eliza and all of that, we're pretending to be a therapist, all that very early.
Exactly. And it never happened. He says for the first time it's actually started happening, and it's really that the experience layer between machine and human has been solved. So I think it's a great UX story.
And the UX story, I think, will continue. Well, Jaspreet, thank you for joining today. And I'm glad that there are forward thinkers like you who will help to guide this new technology and perhaps protect us all and ensure our future. Thank you, Jaspreet.
No pressure at all on me, I think. But thank you very much, Eric. It was a very enjoyable conversation, and I look forward to being in touch.
All right. Cheers.